Good afternoon. It's February the 15th, the year 2002. This afternoon, on behalf of the Southwest Georgia Regional Library, I'm Mayor Livingston, and this afternoon, Tom Bush and I are recording the adventures of Andy Porter during World War II. Andy, tell us about joining you in the Air Force.
Right, their Corps it was at that time.
It was not the Air Force, of course.
Army Air Corps.
And you joined in March of 1942, and you tried to get in the Navy. Tell us about that.
That's right. I tried to get in the Naval Air Corps, but couldn't pass the physical on my eyes. I tried the B7, which I think they call the deck officer, and I couldn't do it with my eyes. So I heard that if you drank carrot juice, your eyesight would improve. So I bought carrot juice by the case. And when I tried to apply at the Army Air Corps, I passed that. I found out later that really if your body was just warm, they'd let you in. So I got in the Army Air Corps, and they didn't call me to duty until October of that year.
Oh, well, 42.
42, right.
The war was on.
The war was on, and we went to, called us on duty and went to Santa Ana, California on a troop train from Dallas, Texas. And when I got out there, they found out my eyes weren't as good as they used to be, so they put me in what they called a casualty squadron for about 3 or 4 weeks until they could form a navigation squadron. I had quite a bit of math in college, and so they wanted to be sure I got in as a navigator.
You had graduated from college.
Right.
And how old were you? Do you remember?
How old was I? I think about 23, 24.
Okay. But then you got in navigation skills.
I stayed there until they got a navigation squadron together, and we took some basic training there at Santa Ana, and then the full navigation school was at Mather Field in Sacramento, and that's where navigation training was completed and graduated in July the 10th of 43, that'd be 43, July the 10th. And from there, then we went to Celestial School in Spokane, and the regular navigators took 2 weeks of Celestial navigation, and the lead, what they call the lead navigators, took 6 weeks, which I happened to be classified as.
You were classified as a lead navigator. Tell us what a lead navigator was.
Well, the criteria at that particular point was just to be at the top of your class. They took the top 2 out of each class and made them lead navigators. Then we took the Celestial navigation at Spokane. For what reason, I really don't know, because the only time we used Celestial navigation in combat was on our way over the ocean. I mean, we flew daylight bombing over in Europe and only used pilotage and dead reckoning. We didn't use any Celestial navigation.
Now, was that the big difference? Now, a lead navigator, you were responsible for your bomber, your plane would be, you were trained in 4-engine aircraft.
Right, B-17.
And your squadron or group, you would be in the lead and they would be following you.
That's right. They had, each group had four lead navigators. And on a mission you'd fly, you'd have the lead plane, the command plane, would have a lead navigator. Then the other lead crew would be what they call a follow crew, in case the command pilot and all that got shot down. That deputy lead would take over. So we alternated, they really alternated us a little bit between actually leading the group and being a deputy lead. Between the 4 of us, we would alternate. There would always be one squadron that would be on stand down. You'd only fly 3 squadrons on a mission.
There were 4 squadrons in a group.
4 squadrons in a group, and you'd fly 3 on a mission. There were 6 planes per squadron. So we had 18 in the group that would fly on a mission. And that's.
And you would be, well, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but let me ask you this, did you guys train together, in your plane?
Well, I joined the lead, the whole crew was a lead crew. I mean, they've been designated as lead crew, the gunners and the engineers, pilots, and co-pilots. I joined the crew the last month, which was the last month of phase training, which phase training lasted 90 days. And the crew had been together for 60 days when I joined. The last 30 days was the navigation phase training. And then we went from there, went overseas.
So you did get to know these guys?
Oh, yeah, we knew the crew.
Well, when you say you went overseas, you flew?
We flew our own plane.
And you flew as a group?
No, we flew individually. We went over as a group, but we weren't in formation, and we flew individually. I joined the crew at Harvard, Nebraska, and then when we got ready to go overseas, we went to Hastings stayed overnight, 2 nights to pick up supplies and equipment. Then we flew to Bangor, Maine, which is really our disembarkation place. We went to Newfoundland, flew there from Newfoundland. And we got caught in Newfoundland for about 10 days. We were the last group. This was in November. This was in November of 43. And we had to wait to go between 2 fronts. So we could get to Ireland, where we were headed. So they finally had the metro where we could get between the 2 fronts and go over, because that was at night. We had to, theoretically, we were supposed to fly Celestial. They would not let us use, there was a radio beam in Prestwick, Scotland. They would not let us use that because the Germans had been bending it where the crews that used it would go north of England and end up in Norway or somewhere.
In other words, the Germans knew it was there.
Yeah.
And they would throw the thing off, and several crews got.
There were several crews went into Norway using that beam that go north of England and take them right into Norway.
And the Germans at that time occupied Norway.
Yeah. So we had to use metro all the way, and in that particular flight over, we had to fly between an overcast and an undercast, so we couldn't use metro very much. So we couldn't use Celestial, we had to use metro. And the only fix I got was in daylight, I got a shot of the sun on the horizon and the moon on the other horizon. And that triangle on the map was bigger than this room. So but the metro was real good, so we got in
You were flying. You were not with a group.
No, we were just in our own plane.
You were in your plane with the crew.
Flying their own plane.
They were sort of dependent on you to say which way we go.
Right, we couldn't use radio at all. They wouldn't let us. They warned us strongly against using radio. We had metro. Some of the guys didn't follow right. Someone tried Celestial, and some of them ended up in France. We had about 3 planes land in France. I don't know whatever happened to them. But we hit Belfast, Ireland, and stayed there 2 or 3 days. I had to modify the plane. I had to put the Norton bomb sight in, and had to put a G-box in the lead plane.
G-box.
That was a navigation, radio navigation thing. It was kind of worked. When I started saying like radar, but it really didn't. We picked up a signal, and we had blips on this green box, and you could pinpoint yourself pretty good within probably between 100 and 150 yards, which was damn good at that time. It wouldn't be good now, but it was real good then. And so we picked those up in the lead plane in Belfast, Ireland.
Well, Andy, you mentioned just then the North bomb site. Now, your whole, and you mentioned the other day about the IP and the fact the bombardier was aboard. He was with you when you flew over.
Oh yeah, the whole crew.
But the bomb site wasn't.
The bomb site was not.
Was there any reason for that?
I have no idea.
Well, it was supposed to be very secret at one
That's
time.
right. But I know they put it on all our planes in Belfast, Ireland. That was part of the modification. I don't know whether that was true of all the groups or just ours or what.
I think we forgot to mention UNB 17.
B-17,
Right,
right
okay. Now, you flew from Belfast to where?
to our base, which was in a little place you couldn't find on the map called Rattlesden, which was right out of Stowmarket, England. And just as an aside here, you remember Doug and Elsie Stewart?
Sure.
They lived about 4 or 5 miles from our base.
Well, have you been back there since
No, haven't been back. I'd like to go back to England just to see what everything looked like.
Now, I believe this was New Year's Eve. I mean, that was that your first mission?
That was my first mission, and the group's first mission was a week or 10 days before that. Our particular squadron was on stand down on that mission. We had, I think I mentioned to you the other day, we flew some search missions prior to that.
That's right.
Up over the North Sea for about a 2-week period, 2 to 3 week period there, before they put us into combat. And the first combat mission of the group was right around Christmas. I don't remember the exact day of that. And the mission that I was hurt on was New Year's Eve, December 3rd.
That was your first. That was
My first mission, our crew's first mission. And we were flying, on that particular mission, we were flying deputy lead. I was telling you about, we were in the upper squadron, deputy lead.
But your whole group was in that first mission.
No.
Just your squadron?
Except for the one, well, there was always one squadron that stood
I see,
down.
okay.
So there were 3. The first mission that the group flew, our squadron was on stand down. And then when I flew, another squadron was on stand down. There were 3 squadrons.
And your target was a rail yard in France.
Railroad in Cognac, France. That's right. We came over the Brest Peninsula and turned into Cognac and turned into our IP, which is it's not too far inland, really.
But you told me really on the big shot, the big deal was going to be a raid on Hamburg.
Hamburg, right. We were a diversionary raid. We were supposed to be a diversionary group. We went in at 18,000 feet. We were supposed to have a ground speed. B-17, the cruising airspeed was around, I don't remember exactly, but it was around 175, 180 miles an hour. And we were supposed to have a ground speed in excess of 200 miles an hour that day. They were supposed to be going downwind. And as soon as we turned in over the coast, I knew the wind had shifted. That was part of my job to know what anything we could do about it. So we ended up going into that target upwind with a ground speed of about 110 miles an hour, which made it very easy for the Germans to track us and get their sights on us. And we were flying lower altitude than we normally did. We usually flew about around 27,000, 28,000 was the more the usual altitude for bombing. So do you want me to get into when we got to our IP?
Sure do that. That's very interesting. I think that was.
We got to our IP, our initial point they call it, and that's normally about somewhere between a 7 and 10 mile run. And when you hit the IP, the bombardier basically took over the plane and controlled it. You didn't move anything.
He actually flew there.
That's right, from down in the nose. They were able to fly down there. And when we turned on our IP, very shortly after that, the Germans threw up a barrage of flak, which they always did to test their accuracy and everything. In this particular case, I told you the other day that the flak was just dead level. When the shells exploded, there was a big puff of black. You've probably seen some of that on television. And this one was right dead level, so we knew we had a problem with anything we do about it. So we ran.
And you told the guys that somebody said, "Here we go."
Yeah, that's right. We were on an intercom.
And were you in the nose of the airplane?
Yeah.
Where was your position?
Bombardier in the navigator were in the nose. Bombardier was right up in the front of the nose, and the navigator was back to his left a little bit, where the G-box was and all that. And so we went in to target, and sure enough, we got hit pretty bad. And I got a couple of licks. I didn't know I was hurt until right after the target deal, we had some Park Wolves jump on us, and I went over to my gun. I had a 50 caliber swing gun, they call it. The Bombardier had a twin 50 caliber turret
in the nose.
And when I fired that 50 caliber swing gun, I thought this arm was coming off, and that's when I realized I'd been hitting the arm. And it kind of made me faint, and I laid down, and Al Halpern, the Bombardier, had a little spare moment in there, and he looked over and he said, "You're hitting the leg too." And the funny part of that being hit was that when we got this burst of flak, I felt a lick on my body, and we had a flak vest on, of course. And I looked down, and the material on the flak vest was torn pretty bad. And I looked down between my legs, and there was a piece of flak bigger than that bottle. Just down, I thought, "Oh boy, I was lucky that time." And that was before I realized I'd been hit. I thought that
You'd been hit in the chest.
Well, yeah, but there wasn't much power to it. It lost its thing. But that's what I thought. I thought that's where I got the lick. Until I fired the gun, and then I realized I'd been
Well,
hit.
didn't the Bombardier or somebody radio and say the engine's been hit?
Well, that was in a minute. We got our engines, had two engines knocked out, one by the flak and one by the fighter. And the pilot gave the bailout order to us, and Al Halpern, this Bombardier, called the pilot and told him that I'd been hit pretty bad. And so he said, "Well, we'll try to make it back."
You were the only guy hit.
I was the only one on my plane hit, yeah. We got the plane was pretty damaged, but fortunately I was the only one hit. So we tried to make it on back, and the B-17s, those planes that go to altitude have what they call the superchargers on them for the engines. When the air gets thin, they put the superchargers on, and why they put the superchargers on our engines, and we pulled on as much power as we could. We came in over the coast of England at 400 feet from
You had dropped there.
So it was pretty lucky. I think I told you that the plane was salvaged. We didn't land at our base. We landed at the first base we could find as we went in. And after when they dismantled the plane, they found 2 unexploded 40 millimeters in one of the gas tanks. And so we considered ourselves real lucky.
You mentioned the fact that you had dropped out of formation.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the Focke-Wulfs, that's when they jump on.
That's when they jump on you.
And two of your fellows, your gunner shot down 2 of them.
That's right. The engineer had a turret right behind the pilot compartment. Was a turret. He got a full kill, and the tail gunner and the ball turret gunner shared the other kill. They gave them both credit for it, which was pretty good for one plane. That was rather remarkable. But anyhow, I think I told you the entire group got a presidential citation for that particular mission because we did so much and had such a hard time getting back and all that sort of thing.
There were 2 other planes though that had been hit.
Well, yeah, there were a total of 6 planes in the group that were hit. One was knocked down, shot down.
Was that the one that blew up?
Yeah. And then there was another plane that was started back, and they bailed out. And then there was 2 of them, and there were 2 following us, and then one went single back. I think I told you the other day there were 3 following him. I think it was only 2 that kind of followed us for the navigation through the flak fields until we got to the coastline, and they went on in on their own. But
And the boys now that bailed out, did Did you have a history?
Never heard
So you don't know what?
word one from them, no. Which wasn't unusual. It was real. The ones that bailed out and made it, you know, they got down on the ground, got in the underground, and we'd never see them if they got back to England. I mean, they'd go, otherwise they'd take them home. So we never did get an opportunity. I don't know whether those boys made it or not. It was just not unusual at all, because we had the combat units. They would, to my knowledge, never come back to their own unit. They'd send them back home and get them back in England and send them home.
But you landed at another field and they salvaged the plane. I mean, the plane was
Plane was salvaged,
shot
it
at.
wasn't good enough to fly.
And you went to the hospital.
Went to a station hospital in England, right out of Stowmarket, and stayed there for a couple months. And it was a little odd. There was another officer came in with, as far as the leg wound was concerned, had the same type of leg wound. So they did a little experimentation. Penicillin was just coming along about that. And they gave me penicillin. Shot me every 2 hours, that stuff, for 2 months. And they gave this other kid sulfur. They treated his with sulfur dose to see which one came along faster. We didn't know that at the time. We didn't know that was going on, but it all worked out all right. I don't know which one healed faster or anything, but then they of course they send you after that. They sent me to a general hospital just north of London, and then when I was pretty well ambulatory and everything, well, they sent me up to Wolverhampton, not Wolverhampton, up to where was it? I can't think. Worcestershire. There was a sort of a rehab hospital. It was an old British hospital. Had nothing but bathtub. We had to take, we had a shower, we had bathtub. And that was where you got rehabilitated, where you could use your hands or legs or whatever was.
Well, did they give you some rehabilitation? I mean, like therapy and all that like that?
My arm, my first exercise was just to use my wrist like that. But they gave others, we had to walk, and they gave us some strength
Was
exercises.
your leg okay?
Yeah, but after they gave me some strength exercises on it.
Were you hit? Did the shrapnel go through or did it stay in?
In both cases.
I've always heard that was one of the big things that it went through.
Well, in my case, it didn't. It stayed in my arm and my leg. And the leg was the worst one. I mean, it potentially was the worst, because the doctor said that the piece of shrapnel, which was about the size of maybe a quarter, a little larger, but thicker, you know. It was right up against the artery, which is kind of at the back of your leg. And he said if we'd have jumped like we were supposed to, like Whitey wanted to, said that would have probably cut that artery. It would undoubtedly have cut the artery, and I'd probably bled to death. Said before they could have got to it, because I'd have been going down in parachute and all that. So it was real lucky that we didn't bail out. The one in the arm did more damage because it broke the bone and everything. And it was still an arm all day.
Well, did you keep a piece of that shrapnel, particularly the one that hit you in the chest?
I had the one, no, not that one. I didn't keep that one. But I did keep the one in my arm. And I have no idea, Mayo, where that is now. I kept it for years, along with medals and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know where
Well, did you keep up with these guys, the pilot and all that?
Well, on my crew?
Yeah.
Well, all of the crew, the enlisted crew, there was 6 enlisted crew, and they went on a mission over Berlin, and they all had to bail out, and the only one that got home was the ball turret gunner. And I ran him down. He was in school at TCU in Fort Worth, and I kept up with the co-pilot and pilot and bombardier for about, I guess 4 or 5 years. Therefore, a bombardier was from Massachusetts, from Worcester, Massachusetts. And Roy Whitson, I forgot, he was up from Minnesota somewhere up there, but I finally lost track of him.
The pilot he stayed there when he heard you were hurt, though, he said, we'll make it
Try to make it back, yeah.
No, it would have been rough trying to go bail out as bad as you were.
Well,
You might have made it, I don't know.
I was kind of glad it didn't have to do that with B-17. When you bail out, you're just right behind on the props. And I had to bail out in training. We had a rule, we flew in training, we flew 3 navigators to the plane. And the rule was if the pilot lost an engine, we were flying in twin Hudsons. If he lost an engine, to bail the trainees out. And we were over the Dead Sea Desert.
Oh, yeah, in California.
In California. And he lost an engine. He bailed us out, and I tell you, that's the quietest quiet I ever heard. And I jumped out of the airplane and everything.
Well, could you have pulled the ripcord? And you got, I mean.
I was conscious.
And you were conscious, and
Yeah.
your arms were all
I
right.
could pull with this one. I don't.
But you couldn't have all
I
of
don't think it was the right one.
That's what I'm saying, you,
But,
but,
so I would have been able to pull the ripcord, but with my leg, that's what the surgeon told me. I was damn glad it didn't happen, because there was straps, you know. I'm sure you've seen how the parachutes fit, there's a strap right through
and
your
when
leg.
you landed, it wouldn't have been a pretty sight if you had landed on that leg. You had to land on it.
No, it would have been a rough deal. So we got back, after we got back, after I got out of the hospital and everything, they let me go back to my base after about 6 months, I guess, total. And that was, this would have been in 40, we were in the 44 now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't guess it was quite 6 months ago, it was 40. Oh yeah, it was easily 6 months. I was not supposed to fly until the flight surgeon approved me for altitude. And one morning when the mission was on, the CQ had called me and told me I was supposed to be at the briefing, and I was on the lead crew. And I got down to the briefing and was sitting there, and the flight surgeon asked me what I was doing there. And I told him that crew up there. And he said, well, you're not supposed to fly. I said, I'll get that changed. So he took me off of it and everything. And that's the crew I told you that blew up over Keel. The whole crew blew up over Keel.
The plane you would have been on.
That I'd been on. And so, you know, and anybody that's been in combat, they've got a lot of those kind of questions. You know, why did this happen? Why did that happen? That sort of thing. So I consider myself having a pretty easy war, to be real honest with you.
Looking back, you
Yeah.
had a close call. Well, then tell us about the checkout. The time you checked out in the airplane and it ground loop.
Well, that was, when the flight surgeon took me to altitude, well, they put us in a chamber thing first.
And they were checking your wounds to be sure the blood wouldn't.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing as divers. When they go dive deep, they have to come up slow. And sometimes when you went to altitude and been wounded, well, you have the same problem. I think it's nitrogen in it that gets out of your blood or something. And so they took me up to altitude along with some others that had been hurt. And we came down, and one of the landing gears, the right landing gear, collapsed, and we ground looped. And I'm down in the nose, I bounced around like a little ball in the thing, and in the process, got 2 licks on my head of a concussion. And boy, that grounded me for sure then.
That ended your war.
That ended my flying days right quick, yeah.
Well, did you come on back to you stayed down in the hospital for a while until this healed up?
Right.
And then did you come home and train up other navigators?
No, of course, they grounded me, put me in the ground forces. They put me in charge of flying equipment, which was the department that handled the jackets, the airport jackets, the goggles, the watches, and the oxygen, and the sea rations, and all that sort of stuff. And then the war was over in May of 45, and my group was going home. The 447th, which was the group I was with, was going home. And the 94th, which was in Bury St. Edmunds, which was just a little ways from us, was supposed to go occupational. So I arranged to get a transfer to the 94th because I had enough points. At that time, I had enough points that if I went occupational with a group, I could individually come home within, I think it was 90 days, I think, a little vague, I think 90 days, because I had these points that had accumulated. So I went to the 94th and went occupational. They were supposed to go occupational. Ended up they didn't. We were supposed to go to Litchfield, Germany, and we took a bunch of equipment over. This colonel that was commanding officer of that group sent me down to the naval depot to get a bunch of equipment to send over. I did. I want to tell you one little funny thing about that if we have time. If you want me to.
Sure. Yeah, you're good.
Right outside.
You're good.
Right outside.
This is a great.
Right outside of, there, he sent me down to this naval base at Exeter, England. And I happened to have been a Captain Sigma at the University of Texas. And I got to this naval base there, and went to the officers club the first night. And it seemed like everybody that was in charge of some department of this thing was Kappa Sigma. So we had a pretty nice college reunion there. And of course, my job was to get things from the Navy to take over to this base. Well, about the fourth or fifth day I was there, the guy that fellow was in charge of all the metal beds and things, and springs and mattresses and everything, said, Andy said, I've got 1,100 these cots and mattresses that we're going to have to get rid of. And said, everybody in England wants them. Said, the Red Cross has been down here looking at them. And said, if you want them, and can get them out of here, why, we'll let you all have them. So I called my CO, and he said, well, we'll have the planes down there in the morning if you can arrange it. So there was a little British fighter base. These fighters went on within about 5 miles of us. So I went over to see the CO that afternoon of this fighter base, and I asked him if we could bring some B-17s in there to get some of this equipment, these cots and things. He said, well, sure, that'd be fine. So I called my colonel back and told him everything was clear, and I'd arranged with this friend, the guy, to get the beds over there. So the next morning, bright and early, they had all these trucks that took those beds over and lined them up, and then the B-17 started coming in. And this colonel had sent the whole group down there to get those beds. And that poor little fighter field, if you can visualize about 15 or 16 B-17s on a fighter base. And so we got that colonel, he said, Lieutenant Porter, they call, they have lieutenants, they're always lieutenants or something. Said, I didn't know you were going to send the whole Air Force down here to get these cots. And anyhow, we got the beds, and they took them over to England. I had to make 2 trips to get them all. The pilots weren't very happy with me, but it was just a fun deal with on that fighter base.
You mentioned fighters on that first, on your mission. Mm-hmm. Did you have any fighter support at all? I mean,
no, well, we did, yes. But the first, I think I told you the other day, the first wave we were the second wave of bombers that came over to England, to the European theater. The first wave had gone in there about in January or February or something like that, and they were just almost completely wiped out. By the time we got there, there was less than 10%, they said, of the original group there. And the main reason was because the fighters could not go with them all the way into the target. They didn't have the fuel, sufficient fuel. And just about in September, before we got over there in November, they started putting extra tanks on P-51s. They had 3 fighters, so we had P-51s, P-47s, and the P-38. And they put these extra tanks on the P-51s, and then they could go all the way in with us. And that really made it much easier for our bunch. In the particular case of our mission going into Cognac, we didn't have, I think we had even a squadron of fighters with us. I don't remember, I remember seeing 3, but I don't remember seeing more than that, but they probably were 6 there. They were all with the main attack, the one going in the Hamburg, the one they were protecting. These were just kind of little teasers. But after the 51s got those extra tanks on, we got control of the air over the European theater, and then our main concern was flak, you know.
The flight
and aircraft guns. You know.
Well, after you got the bid back to England, was that your final mission?
Well, that
did
was,
you come on back?
Well, that was the final official mission. I kind of bootlegged myself on a couple of others. After the war, before the war was over, I went on a couple. They used heavy altitude bombers for taking supplies over to the underground and everything. And I flew on 2 of those that went down into southern France, and that there wasn't much danger involved there, I guess.
Was the war over then?
No, that was after D-Day. After D-Day, though, it was after the D-Day invasion. I flew on a couple of those just because it was fun. I mean, and then after the war, after it was over, the operations officer, we had a little ground crew there, 4 of us that lived in this. I shouldn't tell this, probably. We lived in a Nissen hut there that used to be the barber shop and the special services. Is that what they call it, special services? 2 sections there, the 4 of us. The operations officer, myself in charge of flying equipment, the mess officer, and the armament officer. That's where we had all the goodies in one hut. And we would fly over there. We'd take butter and meat, stuff like that. We'd come back. The only redeeming feature of this little base that we were supposed to go occupational on in Litchfield, it was a fighter base too, was that there was a brewery right outside the gate. And the Germans they made 2 kinds of beer, one for the German enlisted men and one for the officers. And the officers was a real fine Pilsner that they bottled like they bottled champagne. And I won't take too much time.
No.
They might come get me. But we would, on occasion, we would take quite a few little goodies from our base and go over there where we were getting this base ready, and we would work with these beer people, and we'd come back with a plane load of Pilsner beer and all this sort of stuff, and we would divide it with our commanding officer because we thought that was the only fair thing to do.
He appreciated that.
He liked that. But anyhow, that was after the war. Then that group ended up coming home after all. They didn't go occupational, it turned out. So I came home then with the Queen Mary.
That was before Japan surrendered.
No, we were still over. I was still over in Japan. That was in August.
Oh, okay.
And I was down at the naval base when we got word that they'd surrendered. Then we didn't come home until, it was November, the latter part of November, right around Thanksgiving. We came home on the Queen Mary. Got back here around December the 2nd and 3rd, something like that.
Well, were you all expecting, though, after Germany surrendered, you all were expecting to go to the Pacific?
No, I don't think so, Mayo. Not necessarily. Some of our group, there were 2 or 3 groups that were supposed to go occupational, and the rest of them were just due to go home. I mean, I don't know if that was the plan, but I mean, as far as all of us knew, they just were planning on going home. And they were all going by boat. One interesting fact was that whoever made the big decision decided that it was less expensive to take all the 17s that were over there and just salvage them, tear them apart and stuff instead of flying them home. So all the crews came home by boat.
And all the airplanes were just salvaged over there.
Yeah, all the bombers were, as far as I know.
And you came on home and got out when? When did you?
And I got out in December, got my official discharge in January, first part of February, 46, but I got released in the early part of December, about the first week of December, that'd be 45.
Well, Andy, as we close out these remarks, is there anything particular you'd like to put in that we haven't
No,
covered?
I just, like to say that it was a nice experience. I wouldn't want to particularly do it again, but I'm glad I had it. And
Well,
I appreciate being asked to relate some of them.
Well, on behalf of the American people, I want to thank you for what you did, and I just hope you've had a good life in Bainbridge.
Well, I have.
And thank you for everything you've done.
Love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel.